Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Boardmasters with me, Chris Mullins. And I know I planned to do a playthrough of Disney Villainous with Stace tonight, but unfortunately, with England succeeding in the Euros and Stace being really busy with school and everything with her teaching, it's just not something we've been able to fit in this week, sadly. We have put aside some time this weekend to play a few games, so hopefully that will happen next week. But in place of that, I thought I'd put in a little conversation piece that I've been thinking about largely since the Monster Hunter World campaign that I talked about on the channel a few months back about how I wasn't going to back it, but it's probably a larger thing with crowdfunding in general. And again, looking back over my year or so in the hobby, it's something that I've been wondering, in that basically is crowdfunding itself genuinely become a drug for many of us, really. I mean, and that's a serious question. I mean, I know we all have jokingly sort of said, oh, if the wife sees my Kickstarter backlog this month, or the credit card bill for my board games and whatnot. And but largely in my experience, when you're sort of joking about that sort of thing, there's a grain of truth to it. And I know in my experience, I mean, I have spent thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds over the past 12 months. And at times, I genuinely do think it's almost been like a dopamine addiction, in that it sort of started where we booked this fantastic family holiday to Florida, Disney World, that was going to happen August last year. Obviously then COVID hit, that got cancelled. As soon as that got cancelled, I had this sort of big hole and started filling that by planning a next holiday, which was going to be this incredible deluxe Kenyan safari, which we booked for August this year. Obviously that's got cancelled as well, but even before that got cancelled, as soon as that was booked, it was like that hole was there again, and I needed something to fill it. And buying board games filled that in a way that nothing else ever had. I mean, if you've seen my footage before, I've been an avid video gamer for the last 25-30 years, and even though I loved it and I had a massive backlog and I bought too many games, I could still easily go 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months without buying a new game. And then I don't know, get a glut of cheaper ones around Christmas, which I would then not be able to get through over the next year, and then repeat the cycle. So every year I would be increasing my backlog without really buying anything outside of the holidays. But with these, it almost feels like I can't stop. I mean, this week I've had Potion Explosion on back order for 5 months, and to be honest, I got a bit fed up with it. So I cancelled the order, got the money back, and instead of thinking, right, great, got some money back, it was, I mean, it may have been a massive coincidence, but as soon as I got that money back, the next day I then got a stock alert that Horrified was back in stock. So bought that, basically the same price, and the money I got back from Potion Explosion went straight back out on Horrified. And it was the same, I guess I've done videos where I cancelled my Massive Darkness 2 pledge, and instead of taking that 400 odd quid back, I thought, okay, brilliant, I've got 400 quid that I can now spend straight away on a huge amount of retail games. And then Prime Day came, and the amount of times I've sort of said, right, that's it, I'm not going to buy anymore. I think I've mentioned in previous videos, I did actually film a pledge where I wasn't going to buy anything for 6 months, and since I filmed that, I'm probably in double figures. And whilst retail isn't, I do find it a lot easier to resist retail, because it's a quick hit. But with that crowdfunding, it's the whole campaign aspect, in that you get the rush when you back the game, then you're getting update after update and stretch goals and new content, and what have I unlocked today, what have we got, what more is being added to this box. And then you get the way down the line when the actual box arrives and you've got all this fancy, shiny, lovely stuff in front of you, and I think it is something that you genuinely get addicted to. It's a whole separate hobby in that just backing Kickstarters and on GameFound obviously is its own pastime now, and I do genuinely believe you can get addicted to it, and I do think it's a bit dangerous. And I mean, I guess that's probably what you see, and why I mentioned Monster Hunter World at the beginning is because obviously that took a different approach. One of many campaigns recently where they got rid of your standard funding stretch goals and replaced it with daily unlocks. Dead Reckoning was another one that did it. And again, those were two extremely toxic campaigns, largely because people passionately did not like the daily unlocks. And admittedly, both campaigns had issues with the quality of those daily unlocks. So like Dead Reckoning had a daily unlocks where, oh, today's daily unlock is another gameplay video, and then Monster Hunter World just gave us a huge amount of alternate sculpts for one set of hunters and none for the other set of hunters, and then that was all very, very strange. But for people to get that angry about it, I do genuinely think there's something there in that we want FOMO. We want that rush. We want that panic. We want that fear of missing out. The literal definition of FOMO. I mean, and the definition of an addiction is a psychological compulsion. And it does feel like that sometimes. The amount of times I feel like I need to back something, and sometimes I'm able to rein it in, as I did with Wild Ascent. If you saw my video yesterday, I mean, that was an interesting one. And again, I'll link to the video yesterday, but I backed it because it looked gorgeous, and it had an early bird, and it had an extra bonus if you follow the campaign before launch, and then it was so overpriced. There was so little of the gameplay that I was actually interested in. It was only really the branching narrative in the expansion box. And there were so many criticisms of the core game that, apparently the rule book was terrible, and this campaign they only really gave vague promises that they were trying to sort it. There are complaints that all the creatures feel exactly the same. There's nothing to differentiate them. And again, there were just some vague promises that they were looking at it. And I think those aspects contributed to why that campaign went backwards massively in the last 48 hours. And because they didn't address the concerns that people had. But that was such in theory, an easy campaign to walk away from. And I managed to walk away from it. But every day since I cancelled my pledge, I checked that Wild Ascent page 2 or 3 times looking for an excuse to back it again. And that's ridiculous, really. I mean, I know there was some aspects there I liked, but I was still doing the mental gymnastics trying to justify myself to spend $450 on a game. And it's ludicrous, really. And it's just something I wanted to gauge your opinions and your thoughts and your feelings. I mean, is there genuinely... I mean, I certainly believe that crowdfunding addiction is something that is genuine, and I imagine there are plenty of people who've got themselves in serious financial trouble as a result of this. I'm lucky that I haven't, and I probably would have done, to be honest. If the holidays had gone ahead, I think I dived into it so much last September that I did spend too much on the credit card, and it was the money coming back from the holiday that paid that off. But I can certainly imagine people getting in a lot of trouble and getting themselves in debt with it. And if that is the case, does there need to be some protection, some regulation? Does it almost need to be treated like a gambling thing? And I read something on Reddit today, I think, that compared backing Kickstarters to gambling, just that you're basically speculating your money on this project being created and then living up to the expectations and the hype that you've got for it. And I think there's something to that. I think it definitely gives that hormone release that gets it in a cycle, in the same way that, again, from my video game past, Destiny is a game that I played for a number of years, and obviously it came out, it was widely reported that the makers of Destiny were working with psychologists in order to ensure that their grind to loot reward ratio was just right, that you would get enough loot for your grinding to always want you to keep doing it, and basically ensure that you became addicted to the game and not want to play anything else, because you were stuck in that cycle of grinding from better loot and better loot and better loot. And they really psychologically calculated it to get that balance right, so that, because if you're grinding too much, you're going to turn it off. If there's no grind and you're getting through it too easily, there's almost feels like no challenge, and then you're getting all the best gear and they can't keep up with the content. And I mean, I guess that's almost like Kickstarters and crowdfunding in general. And again, going back to Lazy Squire Games, I mean, Wild Ascent was a campaign they finished 2 years ago, and I think they haven't finished fulfillment of that one yet, but they've now done Storm Sunder, which is in the late pledge at the moment, and now they've done an expansion campaign for Wild Ascent, and they've basically done 3 campaigns before they fulfilled one. And there's that gambling aspect, that patience, and it's going to backfire at times, as all gambles do, with games that don't fulfill, or games that turn up and they're terrible quality, or they're no fun, or they're mechanically unbalanced. And I guess that's almost part of the thrill. But yeah, I mean, I appreciate that was kind of a all over the place ramble, but I hope you're able to make some sense of it and feel like engaging me in conversation with this one, because again, it's something I do want to get your opinions and thoughts on it, because it is something I'm worried about, because of the way over the past year I do definitely feel that compulsion to want to buy more, to, even though I've gone from 4 games to 60 games in a year, and I've got another 50 crowdfunding games waiting or in order, and I don't even know if I've got the space for them, let alone whether they're going to be any good. And then I'm still looking at Chronicles of Drunagor in the next week or so, and then Lords of Ragnarok, and hopefully Lords of Hellas would be available through that in a month or so. And you know, when does it end? When do you get to the point where you can say, I've got enough? I don't need that rush of backing a campaign. But I hope that day comes to me soon. And it's definitely diminished as my collection's got bigger, because I have more tools in my armory to be able to say, no, I don't need that, because it's already covered in my collection. But it is something I'm worried about. Do we need some regulation and protections for it? Is the fact that some people could get addicted and in trouble in the same way that gambling and alcohol and smoking does, do we need to protect the many, because some people will get in trouble? But who knows? Again, it's not something that I'm here to give answers for. It's just a conversation I wanted to raise with you. So I'll leave the video there, and hope you enjoyed that. So thank you very much for watching. Look after yourself, stay safe, and have a good one. Thank you. Bye bye now.